one of the things I wanted to show you is I mentioned that I was the very first person to talk about the corruption of FAIR, and I'm the only person to talk about it so far, even though there have been dozens and dozens of people who have come out of the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, and they're saying this organization is effed. Now, they can't say it publicly because most of them have NDAs, but I've talked to so many people privately about this situation. I did a series of articles about it. You can even look at the date. I started talking about this in October of 2021. And guess what happened in October of 2021 when I started talking about the fact that the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism was corrupt? I got attacked by people on the right. It's like, Carolyn, you're just jealous. Me. You don't know what you're talking about. Me. Even though I was talking to probably a dozen whistleblowers behind the scenes, there is so much shady nonsense that has gone on that I can't talk about because they're not my stories to tell. Because if the whistleblowers want them out there, they need to come forward publicly. But they're not coming forward publicly because they're all scared of Brian Bartning, who is the CEO of FAIR. So I started talking about this, and I really want to show you guys receipts of when I have told an inconvenient truth that has turned out to be correct. So I started talking about this in October of 2021. Well, guess what happened today? What happened today is Melissa Chen, who has been on the board of FAIR since the beginning, who is one of the founders of FAIR since the beginning, is resigning from FAIR. She tweeted this out early this morning. I'm resigning from the board of FAIR for All, effective immediately. I can't officially comment on this, though I'm sure some of you know why. Yes, I do know why. Good folks still work there, and I'll continue to support them in whatever way I can. Here's what happened with Melissa Chen. When Brian Bartning and Barry Weiss and Melissa Chen started FAIR back in 2021, Brian Bartning, who is an absolute narcissist, drew up all the paperwork for FAIR. And he put Melissa Chen and Barry Weiss on the board of directors of FAIR without telling them they were on the board of directors. Melissa had no idea she was on the board of directors of the organization until months after the fact, when finally someone was able to get a hold of the paperwork to tell her, yeah, Melissa, you have fiduciary responsibility for this organization. It was beyond unethical what Brian did. But at the same time that Melissa found that out, there were all these whistleblowers coming out of the woodworks talking about the absolute corruption of that organization, talking about how badly they treat their staff, talking about all of the reasons why this organization was inevitably going to crash and burn. They weren't supporting their chapters the way they should have. And I was only able to get a few people to speak up publicly, but I was talking to a lot of people privately about this. Well, guess what? Melissa tried to fix it. Melissa went around and collected stories and evidence from all the employees at FAIR at that time. This is a story that has never been told publicly. She went around and collected all sorts of stories and evidence about what was happening at FAIR to try to stop it. But she was overruled. And she was overruled by Barry Weiss, and she was overruled by Brian Bartning. Because when you have 3 people on the board, and 2 of them to decide to go in one direction, and one of them, which is Melissa in this case, decided to go in another direction, she got overruled by Barry Weiss and Brian Bartning. I'm going to tell you this too, another Daily Wire factoid. There is a reporter at the Daily Wire named Luke Rosiak. Luke Rosiak is responsible for the coverage about the schools in Virginia where he discovered that those kids had been sexually assaulted at schools. The school tried to cover him up. He got hired by the Daily Wire not long after that. Luke Rosiak was working on an expose to expose the corruption at FAIR. I know about this because I heard about it from multiple people that Luke talked to try to do an expose via the Daily Wire to expose the corruption at FAIR. Well, that expose never got published. Do you want to know why that expose never got published? Because Barry Weiss is friends with Ben Shapiro. So the Daily Wire squashed the expose about FAIR because Barry Weiss asked Ben Shapiro to do it. That's my guess about what happened. I don't know that for sure. I'm making some assumptions, but I absolutely know for a fact there was an expose that was supposed to be written about this organization by the Daily Wire, and then all of a sudden that expose went away. And I happen to know that Barry Weiss and Ben Shapiro are friends. You do the math. But Melissa Chen's not the only one saying this about FAIR. We also have this woman, Jessie. Jessie says Fair for All is comprised of good folks working towards a good mission, but like Melissa Chen, I can't publicly elaborate on why I left without risking litigation. Godspeed to all the employees and volunteers left in the pro-human movement. Now, why is this important? Why are we talking about corrupt organizations that are supposedly going to save us from the woke left? Because these organizations bring in tens of millions of dollars of donations, and then they don't do anything with it. And instead, what they do is they enrich themselves and they build their brand, and they never do anything productive to help real people in the real world. If they're getting tens of millions of dollars, guess who's not getting money? People who actually need it, that are doing things in the real world. You need to be concerned about corruption in your organizations, because if you are funding organizations that are just doing it just to build a brand and to inflate someone's ego, but they aren't actually making a difference in the world, that is a waste of money. And there are really good organizations out there that are doing really good work that could use a lot of the money that's been pumped into places like FAIR by conservative, like by these conservative cash cows that just make these multi-million-dollar donations. I know for a fact that No Left Turn in education was denied money. No Left Turn is actually a productive organization because the donor thought that donating to FAIR had more prestige. Tens of millions of dollars a year these organizations bring in. And it should be insulting to everyone that they piss that money away, they treat their staff horribly, and they don't live up to the mission that they have sold the general public at all. So I bring this up because I want to talk about Gays Against Groomers real quick. Gays Against Groomers is an organization that popped up last year, and I kind of had hope for them. I really did. But then one of their ambassadors, you know him, his name is Mike Harlow. He's a walking piece of human garbage. He represents Gays Against Groomers. And Mike Harlow has been openly harassing me and smearing me to try to discredit my work for 2 years. Now, Gays Against Groomers is aware of this. And I know Gays Against Groomers is aware of this because when I started talking about the fact that Mike Harlow was smearing me publicly, Jamie, who is the CEO and founder of Gays Against Groomers, reached out to me and we had a conversation. Judith, who is the director of communication at Gays Against Groomers, reached out to me and we had a conversation. And what was said in that conversation was that Gays Against Groomers was going to implement an internal code of conduct for their ambassadors to make it very, very clear to their ambassadors, specifically to Mike Harlow, that they were not going to tolerate this internet bullshit. And it was actually pretty great because Mike Harlow shut the fuck up for a little while and I was actually able to focus on my work. Well, that only lasted for a couple of months. And then Mike Harlow started smearing me again every single time. Every single time I do a story exposing grooming in schools, which one would think that Gays Against Groomers would want to support journalism around exposing grooming in schools. Every single time I do one of these stories, and every single time it starts to get traction, what happens? But Mike fucking Harlow pops up and starts smearing me. He did it again today. He was peddling a clip from last night's stream that they took out of context. And do you guys want to know what this horde of people is saying about me right now based on this clip that Mike Harlow is peddling around the internet? Check this out. Oh, that's something else. These people are honestly, and Mike Harlow is involved in this, trying to tell people that because I went on a spiritual retreat to Peru in 2016, that is an indication that I have obviously engaged in child sacrifice at Machu Picchu. This is how crazy and unhinged this woke cancel horde is in regards to me. And this is what Mike Harlow is involved in. These are the types of smear campaigns that Mike Harlow supports. And they are quite literally going around Twitter right now trying to tell people, and I know that this is so absurd that no one would take it seriously, that I am engaging in child sacrifice because I went on a spiritual retreat that included going to Machu Picchu. And so I want to make it very clear, and I have been making it clear for a while, that I do not, and so I had these conversations with Gays Against Groomers. I had a conversation with Jamie, their founder. I had a conversation with their director of communication, and I thought everything was going to be okay. And then a couple months later, Mike Harlow continues to try to spin this shit up. He does this almost every day in my life. And I went back to them and I said, "Hey, your ambassador is continuing to try to discredit my journalism that is exposing actual grooming in schools. You guys are not, Gays Against Groomers doesn't expose shit. Just so we're clear. Gays Against Groomers has never once exposed the level of grooming that I expose several times a week. And so you would think that an organization that pretends to care about grooming, you would think that they would be really interested in exposing grooming in schools. But no, what they're doing now, and if Jamie or Judith want to question me on this, I have the receipts, and you know I have the receipts. I have heard from Gays Against Groomers that they don't care what Mike Harlow is doing and that it's really not their problem and they're not going to involve themselves in it, even though they've already involved themselves with it by creating an official code of conduct for their organization that they are not following. So I say this for you guys to think about. I told you in October of 2021 that FAIR is a corrupt organization. And now, oh, look, the founder of FAIR is leaving under pretty dubious circumstances, and there are other employees as well. I have a long track record of being absolutely correct about organizations. When I say there's corruption, there's always corruption. And what I'm saying about Gays Against Groomers is they're an organization that is a social club for gay conservatives, and they have no interest in actually making a difference in the world. The only thing they're going to do is make t-shirts and throw parties and have their little social club. And they all say, Gays Against Groomers. They can all do these pictures and these videos, but they're not actually going to do anything. And by the way, I'm not even the only one saying this, because as soon as I started talking about this today, look what I found or was sent to me. It seems that other people are having an issue with Gays Against Groomers as well. This is from Mark Meets World 1 on Twitter. I resigned from Gays Against Groomers or Trans Against Groomers months ago. My objective and mission no longer align with the organization. I saw a shift in their messaging, and I will not support an org that doesn't truly support transsexual people. Sincerely, Mark Meets World. So you guys can make whatever decisions you want, but I have a long track record of being absolutely correct every single time that I tell you that an organization in the anti-woke space is corrupt, are not going to do anything of value, and are going to piss away every single donation and every single amount of goodwill that you try to send them. And so just because I've been right every single time in the past, I mean, I suppose I could be wrong, but you're gonna have to be the best judge of that. I just wanted to make sure that people had the information